Hey guys, while we're talking about this topic, you might see some harvesting going on behind us. If you're interested in the rice harvesting, just go to the channel page, search harvesting. There's a few videos in there showing you the harvesters in action close up, how they work. Pretty fascinating to watch. So, today's topic, some of you would have seen videos that we made over the years. There was one a few years ago about some statistics. Now and again, some organisation or another will do statistics about what's going on in Japan as far as relationships and sex and things. And there was interesting set of statistics a while back from a condom company that did some research in Japan and came up with some interesting statistics. And that was for people that were married, and you know how often people that are married have sex. Those of you who haven't seen that video, you might want to check it out. The bottom line was rarely. That was sort of the conclusion that they drew. Rarely. It was sort of like some people never did it, and some people did it once a month, and it was sort of rarely was the outcome of that particular survey. So another one was done last year by the Japanese government, because some of you would be aware that they've been trying to improve our population. We've had negative population growth, and an aging population, so we've got people getting older and retiring, but we don't have a lot of babies coming. So they've been doing some things. They've been giving young families money to help them raise their kids, and they've been doing all sorts of incentives, paid maternity leave for mothers and all sorts of things like that to try and make it easier for young couples to have babies. But they also did a survey last year that came up with some interesting statistics. It was the National Fertility Survey, and they did a survey. Part of the survey was for single people, unmarried people, and it came up with some interesting statistics. So how about this? 50% of 18 and 19-year-olds had never been in a relationship. So 50%, half 18 and 19-year-olds had never had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And then between the ages of 20 and 34, 30% of women had never been in a relationship. So they'd never had a girlfriend or boyfriend. 30%. And 40% of men aged between 20 and 34 had never been in a relationship. Just a quick bit of math there. That means that there's some men in the 60% of men who have been in a relationship. Of those, a number of them have had more than one relationship, because otherwise that statistic wouldn't work, right? So between the ages of 20 and 34, 30% of women and 40% of men never been in a relationship, never had a boyfriend, never had a girlfriend, right? Which is pretty amazing, isn't it? I've got to tell you though, it doesn't surprise me because of the people we know. You know, we see this all the time, and we'll get to that at the end. Some more interesting statistics for you. Here's this. Here's the statistics for people who have no sexual experience at all. No sex experience at all. 52% of women between the ages of 20 and 24 have no sex experience at all. Right? 0. 35% of women between the ages of 25 and 29, no sex experience at all. 39% of women between the ages of 30 and 34, 0. 0 sex experience as well. And then men, it's similar. 47% of men between the ages of 20 and 24, no sex experience at all. 35% of men between the ages of 25 and 29, 34% of men between the ages of 30 and 34. They're just not into it, basically. They're not interested. We'll sort of get to that again in a minute. And then some more statistics that's sort of interesting too. They asked them, do you want to have a date? Do you want to have a relationship? And 35% of women said no, and 33% of men said no. Isn't that amazing? They're just not interested. So it doesn't surprise us. It's not amazing for us, because we know people. We know lots of people like this. And the word we hear the most when we talk about this topic, usually I don't ask it, but I've heard usually, older ladies will ask younger people, have you got a girlfriend? Have you got a boyfriend? Like they do in every country. Every country we have aunts that ask us that, don't we? If we don't have a girlfriend or boyfriend, there's always an aunt that says, so when are you going to get married, right? Same thing here. And what we hear when someone says that, when someone asks that question of some young person, you know, have you got a girlfriend, have you got a boyfriend, they say mendoxe. Mendoxe. If you look up the dictionary, mendoxe translates, they say bothersome, but it sort of means hassle. That's how they're using it. It's just like the way they see relationships, boyfriend or girlfriend relationships, is just being a hassle. They're just not interested. It's just a hassle to them. And so they prefer, and we've made videos about this and we've showed you lots of examples of this over the years, is the, how little the crows, is that the girls, young ladies, tend to prefer just to hang out with the young ladies, and the young men prefer to hang out with the young men. And we've showed you over the years lots of examples of this. You know, we go to the beach in summer and you'll get groups of young dudes frolicking in the water, splashing each other in the water and giggling and laughing and throwing balls to each other and running around, right? Groups of young guys. And you'll have groups of young girls all laying out on the beach, you know, and looking fabulous, really looking fabulous, of course. Japanese ladies, Japanese young ladies, and they're all hanging out together and looking at their smartphones and taking pictures of each other. We showed you that before, taking 100 pictures of each other, and just showing zero interest in each other. Usually, I mean, there's exceptions, right? Like 30% exception, right, sort of thing. But most of them, just not interested. They're just not interested. The guys are quite happy just to hang out with their little group of guys, and the girls are quite happy to hang out in their little group of girls. And you know, whether they be 18-year-old high schoolers or 20-year-old university students or 30-year-old ladies, you know, it's pretty much the same. We do see when they get to 30 that there's a pretty cutting thing that Japanese people say. They talk about Christmas cake, right? And they refer to the fact that ladies over 30, this is cutting, right? I don't say this, right? But they refer to the fact that ladies over 30 that aren't married, they're Christmas cake. So Christmas is over and the cake hasn't been eaten yet, that sort of thinking, right? And so you do see that, and we've seen that with ladies that we know, that they're all happy and carefree until they get to about 29 years old, and then all of a sudden they're going, oh, I need to get married. You know, I need to get married. I'm 30, I need to get married. And you'll see them go into sort of panic mode. And they'll grab anyone. I mean, we've seen so many examples of this. You know, there's one lady that we know that's a pretty funny lady. And just suddenly she said, I'm engaged. And it was like, I didn't know you had a boyfriend, you know. And she'd met this dude, and he works at City Hall, and he's got a good job, and he's nice. And that's usually the only requirement, that they have a good job and they're kind. That's the two requirements. We made a video about that once before. And so she met this guy, he has a good job, he's kind. So they're getting married. Well, they got married, they're married now. And I said to her, because she's a really funny lady, and I said, oh, that's great, you know, congratulations. And is he a funny guy? Does he have a sense of humour? Because she's funny, you know. And, oh, not really. No, he's a bit boring, you know. And it's just, it's sort of out, when they do get married, it tends to be out of practicality. When they do get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it tends to be out of practicality. And again, we've talked about this before too. They'll often have a boyfriend or a girlfriend that they almost never see. We know one couple that are like 23 years old, and they see each other for a couple of hours on the weekend usually, and the rest of the time they're just doing their own things with other people and just not really interested. And it's just sort of like they're doing it, they're courting, because at some stage in the future they're probably going to get married. You know, and it's sort of the society when you live with this society, and those of you who watch our videos, or those of you who live here or have watched our videos over the years, will recognise that the relationships here tend to be, and not always, you know, there's exceptions to everything, isn't there? But the relationships tend to be fairly skin deep. You know, they tend to not be terribly close, and so the benefits of being in a relationship don't sort of exist. You know, that closeness that some of us have with our partners in, you know, in other countries, in other societies, is sort of worth the hassle, right? It's worth the hassle because the benefits that you get from it emotionally and intellectually, because you have relationships where you have a sort of a mental connection and an emotional connection, and you know, you can help each other grow and all sorts of positive stuff that comes out of having a good, healthy relationship. And that doesn't sort of exist here. You know, we know a million examples of this. We know a lady whose husband was transferred away, and we talked about that in another video about people being transferred to other countries. And her husband was transferred to another state, another prefecture. And so he used to come home on weekends. And then he got transferred back here. And I said, oh, that's great. He's got transferred. Oh, no, not really, she said. You know, he gets in the way. He gets in, he's Jummer, right? He's Jummer, he gets in the way. And so she didn't want him around. And that's really common here. You know, relationships where they're just not close. They're just not close. The husband goes to work, does his job, brings home the money. You know, the wife looks after the house. And that's the sort of relationship that's the standard. Not always, again, you know, lots of ladies here work. But that's a fairly standard relationship in Japan. And they're just not close. The ladies will tell you, oh, my husband's annoying. And, you know, he just spends every Sunday playing games all day and he's boring. And they're just not close. So those benefits that some of us get when we have healthy relationships, they don't get. And then the sex thing too, you know, we made a whole video about this. One of our most viewed videos, it's had millions of views, but Sex in Japan is the name of that video. And just talking about the fact that the way that sex is perceived here is usually twisted. You know, recently on YouTube, you would not believe the ads that we're seeing on YouTube recently. Is it's animated pornography basically. It's all pixelated, so you don't see the genitals or anything. But they have these twisted animated commercials running on YouTube. So before I get to watch a video on YouTube, you know, those non-clickable ads pop up and you can't stop it. You got to wait till it finishes. And just twisted stuff. You know, we actually showed you one a while ago. A twisted story of a dude sitting on a train and there's a schoolgirl opposite him and she comes over and sits beside him and she's got that 2012-3 little girl thing going on and some twisted stuff. You guys know that that imagery that we always get from Japan with twisted sexual stuff, you know, and that sort of dominates. You know, it dominates. Those of you who've ever seen any Japanese pornography, it's really tragic. It's really, really tragic. It's almost always got this underlying rape theme going on with the girl going, yada, you know, I don't want it, I don't, yada, yada. And rape, like a underlying rape theme from just, I don't want it, but I'm going to go along with you because you're my boss, right? To full on 5 guys at work raping some girl. You know, that's their idea of pornography, and so you've got this image about sex that's disgusting and it's twisted and it's sort of a bad thing, right? Which means then that people who are interested in sex are seen as being ecchi, which means like sleazy or sick or twisted, and so good people are usually seen as not interested in sex. Right, and again, generalities, and there are exceptions. Dragonflies everywhere too. Cool, isn't it? So again, if you want to see more about that, the harvesting. Search harvesting on our channel page and you'll get that machine. Search dragonflies and you'll get 1 million videos on dragonflies. So yeah, if you look at it from that point of view, the way they see it, and we see this all the time, you know, anybody that shows any interest in sex is considered to be ecchi and twisted, which again, you know, those of us who come from different societies see having a healthy, some of us, not everybody, but some people see having a healthy sexual relationship as being a healthy thing, that it's good for us to have a healthy sexual relationship, you know, and it helps our relationships with our partners and all sorts of positive benefits from having a healthy sex life, you know, but generally it's not seen like that here, you know, it's not portrayed like that in any of the, you know, any of the mainstream media or the TV dramas or the anime or the manga or particularly pornography, or the magazines that you see in the convenience store. So the way it's portrayed, the imagery that they have of that most Japanese people have of sex is a twisted thing that good girls don't want, and only naughty boys, etchy, sleazy boys want. That's the imagery that they have. So if you take out, if you take out, when you're weighing up the balance of if you want a boyfriend or a girlfriend, if you want to be in a relationship, if you take out the sex benefits, there's no benefit to having sex, right? That's all just twisted, sick stuff, and we don't want to know about it. And close relationships with another person, you know, with a partner, is something that just sort of generally doesn't seem to exist. And if you take those two things out, why would you have a relationship? You know, and then that's it all makes sense. When we're used to seeing all this stuff, and then you get a young guy saying, "Oh, I don't want a girlfriend at Mendoza," you know, it's annoying. It's a hassle. It's a hassle. It makes sense. It's not surprising. It's not surprising. You know, it's sort of, for an outsider, it's sort of surprising, you know, that a 22-year-old guy surrounded by beautiful ladies. I mean, Japanese ladies, some of the most beautiful ladies in the world, and the 22-year-old guy surrounded by beautiful ladies, and they might have friends or university co-students or people around them, co-workers or whatever, who are beautiful, beautiful ladies, and they're just not interested because it's a hassle, and the ladies are the same. So, but when you live here and you see what the relationships are like, and then you see couples and what the couples are like, not always, you know, there's exceptions to this. We do know people who have healthy marriages and healthy relationships, and you know, there are exceptions to this, of course. But, you know, and that's why those statistics aren't surprising, you know. And if you think about it too, these guys are not, they too haven't seen healthy relationships. You know what I mean? To aspire to. You know, a lot of these people that aren't interested don't know anybody who's you know, you don't, in some of our societies you see someone and they've got a really happy relationship, a really happy couple, and it's really healthy, and they're having happy life and achieving lots of good things, and it's all really happy and well balanced. And when you see that, you're more likely to aspire to it, aren't you? But when you've never seen that, and I mean, there'd be lots of people in Japan who've never seen such a thing, and they haven't seen it in real life, and they haven't seen it portrayed in a realistic way in animation or in television or in books or in literature or anything. You know, it tends to be, if you do see stuff, it tends to be either sick and twisted, or it tends to be over romanticized. You know, over romanticized sort of stuff where it's unrealistic. And often has really tragic ends too. Usually doesn't end happily. Fabulous, isn't it? Yeah, interestingly, usually Hollywood-style movies, you know, usually have a happy ending, don't they? You know, happily ever after. A lot of Japanese movies and dramas and things usually have a sad ending. Usually it's tragic, you know. It's sort of Romeo and Juliet style usually. And there's actually a classic example of that with, at the end, the couple both take swords and kill each other, you know. So the happily ever after thing isn't something that they usually aspire to. It's sort of, the ones who do get married, they sort of seem to accept it like it's their duty that they have to do it. You know, they just have to do it, you know, and they're not really excited about it or into it. They just have to do it, sort of thing, you know. It's just a society. None of this is surprising when you live here. It's all part of it. But just before we go, just a funny thing. Some of you would have seen previously we talked about the Go to Eat campaign. So during COVID, you know, they were trying to keep restaurants alive. So they were paying people, they were paying us, giving us money basically to go and eat at restaurants. And then they had the Go to Travel campaign was the same. So when you spent money at a restaurant or spent money travelling, that you sort of got money back from the government to sort of keep the economy moving. So they had the Go to Eat campaign and the Go to Travel campaign. So we're wondering, with the government trying to increase the population and try to get people to get relationships going, do you think they'd consider having the Go to Shag campaign? Do you think that? What do you think about that? Can you imagine that on television? Do your bit for Japan. Go to Shag, you know, and what would the incentives be? So I'll plant I'll plant that little seed for you. Let you think about that. How would they run the Go to Shag campaign in Japan? What would the incentives be? What would the advertising look like? It's not going to change. Like everything else in Japan, it's not going to change. It's going to stay the way it is for a really, really, really long time. Stuff here changes really, really slowly, if at all. Usually not at all. So, anyway, oh good. Isn't it a hive of activity out here? Can you see all the dragonflies? Millions of them. And the crows. And the old man, he's collected all the rice in a big tank in his harvester there, and he's extended his boom out over his truck, and now he's going to pump all the rice into that blue bag till it's full, and then off he goes again. So this is going on everywhere at the moment because the rain stopped, the rice is dried out, and the stuff that's ready to harvest, they're into it. So then he'll drive his little truck to JA, Japan Agriculture, and they unload the rice there and load it into big trucks and take it off to be bagged and whatever else they do to the rice. So anyway, that's enough on that topic for now. No doubt it'll raise its head again. So anyway, enjoy the Go to Shag campaign. More videos coming soon.